Welcome, everybody, to the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode number 3. I'm your host, Osiris Prime, and tonight we got the full crew, finally. It's been, a couple weeks maybe? I was out last week. So we got DBQ Hams is back.
I am back. Thanks for, I was gone last week a little bit. You were gone a little bit. We're back together for our big episode 3, right? That's a huge milestone for us. But
Right.
but again, I'm glad to be here. Glad to have some of the comments and the feedback that we're getting on the E2KG network, and it's great to have that and see it grow a little bit and continue to pull people in, and that's excellent. So thanks for watching, everybody, and continue to throw comments and questions and regrets all our way as well.
That's right. And we have Mr. Zeux, which I'm not sure if he'll chime in here, maybe, because he's busy behind the scenes.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome back for another epic show. It's going to be legendary.
It always is. And we're actually recording on a Wednesday night tonight, this week, a little bit later, a couple days later. We had some technical issues on Monday, and then the holiday, it was July 4th, so happy July 4th, belated July 4th. But yeah, we're back. We're in full strength. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to do playlists, as usual. What we've played this past week or so, maybe 2 weeks for me, because I haven't been on for a while. But first, we will talk about our topic of the week. What are we going to talk about this week, guys? We're going to talk about regrets. What kind of regrets? Regrets about life, maybe? That girl maybe we didn't ask out back in high school?
Prime, you said we wouldn't talk about that. It's such a sensitive topic for me. I'm still working through it with my counselor.
Sorry, dude. I forgot. Maybe that car we didn't get to buy back when we first got that big paycheck. But no, we're going to talk about gaming regrets, of course, because this is a gaming podcast. So we're going to talk about hardware regrets, software regrets, maybe anything else that pops up. So let's start with hardware. Let's go with the big one first, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I'll start. For me, I was thinking about this past week, and at first I was like, yeah, you know what? Everything I've bought, I can usually buy, find at least a few games on it, and just dig into them and play them, over and over again. But I did finally figure out one console that. I guess it doesn't have to be a console, I suppose. It can be peripherals and stuff like that. But it was a handheld. It was PSP, original PSP. I got it. I don't know if I got it like when it launched. It was probably like a few months later, maybe even up to like 6 or 9 months later. I can't really remember exactly. But about the PSP, I had a Dragon Ball Z game, one of the Budokai games, I believe. I had Battlefront on PSP. Didn't control so hot since it didn't have the second thumbstick or joystick on it, so it wasn't the best to play or control, but it was decent. And then I had some other puzzle game. I can't remember what the game was. That was mostly for my wife to play. I played a little bit too, and I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up.
Was it Luminous?
No, it wasn't Luminous. I can't remember what it was. They actually made at least a sequel, maybe even a third game in the series. I'll have to look it up while you guys are talking. But I had those games, and I bought, I think, Battlefront and DBZ pretty much right away. So I had those 2 games at first, and I thought, and then this is when I was first going out with my wife. I thought we might go on some trips more often than we actually did. We didn't, unfortunately. So it was kind of just sitting there, and after a while, I kind of thought about it. I was like, why did I even buy this thing? I mean, it's fine. It was good. Obviously graphically, it was far superior to the I don't know which Nintendo was out at that point. Was the Game Boy Advance, or no? It was past that. The DS.
It was the DS. Yep, it was the DS.
Okay. So it was graphically, it was obviously far better than the DS, which wasn't obviously for me even back then. It wasn't a big deal for graphics and stuff, but it was the cool thing to get. They had those cool commercials and all that. What was it? Franz Ferdinand, I think they had. In one of the commercials, I can't remember the title of the song, but
sounds like it would have been trendy at that time.
Yeah. So I bought it, and I played with it for maybe a month or so, and I just kind of dropped off, and like I said, I didn't really travel too much, so I was just kind of sitting there, and I'd pick it up every once in a while, even maybe up till probably more than 4 or 5 years ago, probably right before my son was born. So that was probably like almost 7 or 8 years ago. I was still playing it every once in a while. I take it on long trips and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just thought about it after a while, and it wasn't super expensive when I bought it. I think I got it on sale. Same thing with the games, but I just thought about it after a while, and I just thought it was just kind of a, I don't want to say dumb purchase, but just kind of probably a spur of the moment purchase that I probably shouldn't have done, kind of like most stuff I do. But that was the one thing I could think of. I'm sure I could probably think of some peripherals, but as far as like major things, it was, oh boy.
So this is my PSP collection, still here.
There it is, Loco Roco. That was the one.
Loco Roco. Okay, yeah, they did. They made a 2. Yep.
Yep. So I had bought both of those. Yep. So I had like 4 games. Yeah.
Yes.
I wasn't super
catchy
massive.
Music. What?
Yeah,
These UMDs.
Oh, the UMDs.
Oh.
Do you have any movies?
No. Well, I shouldn't say no. I did buy a movie at one point, but I turned around and there's a regret, right? Buying a movie on a UMD. Yes. I enjoyed my games completely on PSP, but I did a lot of portable gaming at the time. I was in a different situation than you. When I picked it up, my kids were little, and so portable gaming was the most accessible. And so the PSP certainly got me through some random baby wake-up hours and late nights with kids. But I could see some regret there if it didn't quite it wasn't an odd system where it wasn't quite a PlayStation 2, although it promised that, but the control scheme wasn't there, and the battery life wasn't amazing. Spinning discs was not there's a reason that things have moved away from spinning discs in a portable system.
I think we're going to have to end the show. I can't believe you guys are regretting your purchase of the PSP.
Oh, I'm not. Not at all.
That was just me.
I brought my collection out as my PSP defender here. Hold
like
on.
10 games there, I think.
I do. These are ones that I've sold a lot of my PSP games over the years, but I've kept some. There were some that were you could get Metal Gear, whatever the Metal Gear one was.
Portable Ops.
No, well, yeah, Portable Ops, yes.
Something like that.
But then there was a more recent one that actually Peace Walker, right? That was more in the Metal Gear 3 vein. But yeah, Portable Ops was a fun game. I played probably 8 hours of that. I sunk a lot of time into games like Dissidia in terms of a Final Fantasy fighting game, which is an oddball thing. Siphon Filter, yep. Yeah. Not at all. No regrets there.
And movies. That's where I watched Kill Bill and Dodgeball.
Yeah, we were just talking about the UMDs.
Yep.
UMD movies.
So do you still have your UMD movies, or did you did they get sold or traded in at some point in time?
Mine were sold and traded. So and one of the things I wanted to talk about on this topic was that it's also not as, I don't want to say simple, but there's a lot of complexity to it, right? I mean, it's not just the purchase regrets, but it's things that we got rid of that I wished I still had. It's things that you purchased when you could have purchased something else and that opportunity cost, but maybe you came back around and bought it later. So one of my connected regrets is, so I had a PSP, wonderful system. I went through a very rough time. And I was kind of stranded somewhere for a long time, and I just had my PSP with me. I hadn't spent a lot of time. I think I actually bought it on that trip. I think one of the things I did to cope was I actually went and bought a PlayStation Portable at a local store, and I had whatever year it was. I had Major MLB by EA. It was a wonderful time because I actually sunk the time into playing through a large chunk of that whole season. But I also had games like NFL Street 2, which was great. And I had one of the I think I had Need for Speed Underground, like portable or mobile or whatever. And I love that game. I actually went back years later and bought a lot of the songs from the soundtrack. So, but I guess it kind of came to an end. I bought the Nintendo Wii. That's a regret. And went all Nintendo, right? I suddenly became enamored with Nintendo after decades of never playing a Nintendo system. I therefore went and traded in my PlayStation Portable and bought a Nintendo DSi. which I enjoyed. But when I became unenamored with the Wii and got rid of it, I guess I also got rid of the DSi and then bought a PlayStation Portable again. But a lot of the games that I'd fallen in love with, like they weren't on the market anymore. The PSP was winding down. They were hard to find. So I kind of regretted the time that I took away from the PSP when I was really enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I can see that. Go ahead, Prime.
I was gonna say that, that's a good point. I guess, doing the selling of systems or just getting rid of stuff, and to your point, obviously that's something more personal for you. For me, it wasn't. Like I said, it was kind of more of a throwaway thing, which I probably shouldn't have bought. I mean, really, but that could be another topic maybe one day. Just kind of, how games kind of, how we deal with situations in our lives and kind of games that helped us that way. But yeah, you have a good point. Like I said, it wasn't a bad system. I liked it. DB makes a good point though. The controls, without that second stick, it was a little hard for me. It was just, I don't know. It was just a little different. Like I said, I had Battlefront, so that was kind of hard to play without a second stick. I think you kind of use the face buttons kind of to look around and stuff, kind of like the old. I think, what was it, Turok maybe, that did that on the Nintendo 64 maybe, or something like that. I can't remember, but so it was a little weird. So that was all. I mean, and just like I said, in general, I didn't get to use it as much as I thought it was going to. So
did you have Battlefront 2, or did you have one of the portable special, Rebellion, or the Elite Squad, or one of the other ones that were specially made for portable?
I think it was 2, I believe, if
Okay.
I remember correctly. I still have it. I don't have it near me, so I can't check.
Yeah, I had Rebellion, which was the one after that, but that was only on PSP, and maybe eventually then ported to PlayStation 2. But it was that one I enjoyed a lot. I even played that one online. I played some,
Nice.
PSP battles online where you're flying, X-wings and flying into hangars of things and taking out. But yes, I mean, you live with the controls you have, and at that stage, I didn't have a console system, and so that was where I had for controls. So I didn't know what I was missing if that was the only thing I had. So again, I think part of it is your circumstances. So yeah, I do not regret my PSP, although on a related Sony topic, I have purchased I am on my third Vita, because I buy it because I think it sounds like a good idea, and then I sell it because I realize there's really not much I want to play. And then maybe, so I did this over a course of like a 2-year period, is that I purchased it, sounded great, turned around, I got a good deal on it. I mean, so then I turned around and sold it. About, a year later, I'm like, oh, I should have one of these. Bought it again used back when, Kaboom was a thing, the Best Buy outlet store, and, downloaded it, played a few things, took it on a trip, like, this is great, this is exactly what I want, and then it sat for like 2 months at my house, and so I sold it again. And eventually I ended up with my third one, and now I use it. I use it occasionally, but I've also built up enough of a library to it that I'm glad that I have it. But there are times when, it is kind of a knee-jerk purchase maybe, and then I realize, oh, I don't really need this. I'm regretting buying it. But then I have like the double regret, right? I buy it and I regret that I own it, so I sell it. And then a little bit later, I'm regretting that I sold it. And so I'm getting both Prime's regret for buying something and Zeus's regret for getting rid of it. So, but I think
vicious cycle.
It is. I think for me, the hardware-wise, I've been relatively cautious because it's always been a little more of a financial investment, and so I haven't had too many regrets that way. But the regrets that I've had hardware-wise have been, I think recently, maybe Destiny Taken King, I bought a PSP or a PS4, Uncharted collection and Destiny with that, and it sat over the holidays, and I never opened it because I was playing my Xbox, and I returned it. And it wasn't until maybe a year later that there was enough of a critical mass for me to warrant buying another console system. If I think about the consoles that I've sold, I still, just this past week, my son dug out my Super Nintendo, so I still have that. I've held on to a lot of things. The one console that I have sold, and I even had the original box, was my Nintendo with the Zapper and the double cartridge. And I sold it back when my wife and I were just married, and we were relatively broke. But I don't regret it, because there's a good story attached to it, is that I sold it, I traded it in for credit to buy a game for my godson who was in the Ronald McDonald House. So I gave the gift of gaming. But, so I can see, people who have maybe traded things in a moment of thinking they needed the new hotness and maybe have regretted it. So, Zeus, have there been other hardware regrets or other trade-in regrets that you have?
Oh yeah. So to go back to your Vita story, so just I was looking it up while you were talking, and rationalization is part of the middle stage of an addiction. So I just wanted to.
Oh, okay, that's good. It certainly was rationalized. Yeah, what's the next stage after that? Do I come to acceptance at some point and I just admit? Yeah.
Right. I can handle it. I only do it a little bit. So yeah. So as a PC gamer, I guess I might, and maybe it's not so much that I'm a PC gamer. It's that I'm a hardware guy. So I have a literal trail of tears of stories of this ilk. So the most recent story, Prime was talking about a little bit in the pre-show, is I have had 1, 2, 3. I've had 4 gaming laptops fail in the last, I guess I would say 7 years, right? So since the Xbox 360 Red Ring of Death and my Scorched Earth policy for Microsoft that I enabled at the time when I bought that first gaming laptop, and that wasn't my first gaming laptop; it was just the one that I bought in that moment, And I guess I've kind of arrived, and so most recently, my Lenovo Y50-70, which is a 2015 laptop PC that has a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 960M in it, so it's one generation behind what NVIDIA is currently selling. I walked into a Best Buy kind of on a whim one night on the way home from work, and it was in one of my recent jobs where I had I would say a particularly long commute, longer than the norm, even for a long distance commuter. And I had another gaming laptop at the time that ran an 860M, which at the time was a generation behind. This laptop was recently marked down from like $1,300 to like $1,000. It was on a holiday sale, and I was like, oh, here's a pretty inexpensive means to upgrade where I am right now, and then I'll just keep using the 860M laptop as my backup. This is also at a time when gaming laptops were my primary gaming platform. I had just gotten out of building PCs because the gaming PC technology at the time was holding pretty steady, and there just wasn't the need to have a desktop to continuously be upgrading. So I bought that. I brought it home. I've had problems with it. The screen flickers a lot, which I haven't allowed to bug me because I'm typically have it plugged into an external monitor and I'm using the laptop's monitor as a secondary monitor. But this Lenovo Y50 has eaten itself 4 times. I've had to wipe the system and restore Windows from the ground up. So I've had to wipe all the configuration and setup that I had gotten and kind of groomed into where I wanted it. And I had to do it again this week. So perhaps even more regrettably is after I did that, after a lot of agonizing, and I've got what I call my summer upgrade coming up, which I'm on a tight timeline to get accomplished because I like to do these things when the wife and kids are on travel and they have a trip coming up. So I've been agonizing over an upgrade since Friday. I've been like, every time I created a wish list on Amazon, I would go back and redo it. And I have spreadsheets and all sorts of stuff. So in the middle of that agonizing, this happened, and I'm like, I got to scrap the whole plan and like deal with this. But but so most regrettable about the upcoming upgrade, as far as my plan right now, and I think I'm done fixating on it, is I just lost my train of thought there for a second. Is that I just spent labor effort, right, restoring that PC, installed 13, 14 games on it, just so it can get me through the week. And then my intention is when I upgrade, I'm gonna, rip out the hard drive and sell it on eBay, or just leave it around here as a backup. So I'm gonna lose, and that was one of the reasons I hadn't selected it to upgrade during the summer upgrade, was because, again, I just rebuilt the thing like in March or April. So yeah, that's a regret. But it's a symptom of what I do, right? I'm hardcore into hardware, and so I periodically have to deal with things like this. Unfortunately, it really doesn't happen that often. But with laptops, it's been happening a lot. I've had a lot more gaming laptops fail than I've had PC components that I've ordered to build desktops that have come in and been DOA or not worked, and I've had to send them back for an RMA and get a replacement, or generally just order a new part. So it's kind of changing my whole philosophy on high performance laptops.
I think you're just working those systems too hard. That's what it is.
Well, that's actually logic. That's part of my rationale, right? Is I thought very deeply about this week. I spent several hours sometimes sitting in my chair, just kind of walking myself through the logic to ask myself if I'm making the right decisions. Yeah, I'm questioning. So I'm going to take a bunch of high-end PC components, right? A Core i7 processor, high-speed RAM, and a GPU, and stuff it inside this laptop enclosure that can't possibly be circulating enough air to really keep these parts cool, and subject it to high-end PC gaming, as well as video editing and other stuff for 18 months, 2 years at a time, and expect that that's not going to cause a problem. And I've just arrived at a spot where I'm like, this is taking too much time, and I'm just going to build desktops for those workstations, because at least then I feel like I have a little more control over their reliability.
Yeah. Do you do the streaming off of those too then? Or do you separate a desktop for that? Or even just game capture, I guess, too.
Yeah, so I was using that 860M laptop that I mentioned that I had when I bought the Lenovo. I built a desktop to replace it last year, and I kept that one around as a streaming machine. That was more kind of a learning experience, because I've been trying to kind of hone in on what do you really need to have to do good high quality game captures and streaming. So that was an experiment, but in general, I'm building. So can you see it? I think I talked about it when I built it. So back over there, that come on, which direction are you pointing? So that white box sitting over there in the corner, the small form factor PC, is my primary game capture, streaming rig, and multimedia editing rig.
Nice. Yeah, I have to say, because you brought this up actually, as far as selling stuff off or trading stuff, when I was getting my Xbox One, I actually sold off my Saturn and a bunch of games, and just immediately regretted it a few days later, a week later. I was like, why did I do that? I was so dumb, because I actually had an inkling to play some of those games later on. I had Marvel vs. Capcom at that point. I had actually a bunch of fighting games. What was it? Fighting Vipers, I think, was one of them. The old Sega fighting game. That was cool. I don't know why. I don't know. It was just dumb. Die Hard, which is kind of a different. I guess. I
love that Die Hard game. It's a Die Hard arcade game.
Yeah, like the beat 'em up. Yeah.
Yep.
So kind of cheesy. Oh, no, I shouldn't say kind of cheesy. It's really cheesy.
It's pretty cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun though. So yeah, that, and most of my other consoles I have still though, old Nintendos, and I still have a PS2, and a PS1. Yeah, originals, and a Dreamcast. I'm not sure if I still have that. I don't know if it's at my parents' house or not. I have to look one day, but yeah, hopefully I'll dig that out one day.
Well, that's what I was going to mention about my Xbox One attainment regret is you sold your Saturn, I sold my Sega Dreamcast, which years later, in retrospect, right, as I recently wrote, I kind of feel like, in close contention with the Xbox 360, I argue is the best gaming console ever made. But it's gone.
You got rid of the VMUs.
I did. I still have my PlayStation 3 though, and I realized this weekend that console has been in service now. Well, that particular unit hasn't been, but that era of gaming, that particular hardware set has been around since for 11 years.
Yeah. Well, surprisingly, I had I think 5 360s maybe. I don't regret them getting switching them all out. 4 or 5, somewhere around there. I've heard more, but that's for me. That's how many I had.
Now, did you buy those, or were those Red Ring of Death failures?
No, those are Red Ring. Yeah. I got
those.
And
same thing. My fourth one was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's when I.
That was it.
September 2010. I cast off my Xbox 360. Like it came in right in the RMA box. I literally unboxed it, put it in a bag, and drove it to GameStop. and then drove like 30 minutes to Best Buy to buy a gaming laptop.
Nice. Yeah, you know, I mean, as long as they were getting replaced for free, I was fine. I had a Wii at that point too. I had other consoles and you know, gaming, portable gaming consoles, so I was fine. I don't care. I didn't really mind too much.
I'm sorry. So I'm realizing now we haven't talked about games that we regret purchasing.
Yeah, you want to start that off? Go ahead.
So well, it's an interesting conversation, right? Because I can't remember purchasing a game that ate my game save. So I know you guys, much more so than I am, are fans of the large, world-walking, 80-hour of gameplay, big RPGs. And I know Bethesda has gotten a rep for throwing these things out on the market. And it's often, I guess, one console's version or another. I want to say it's been Sony's, but that may be incorrect. Yeah. So I don't know. How have you felt about that? And one of the things I'd like to talk through with the remaining time we have too is, has that happened to you? And when it has happened, whether it's software or hardware, have you like sworn off that developer or publisher or again, have you ever done a scorched earth policy like I did with the Xbox and like gotten rid of it and was like, I'm not giving that company money anymore for like 7 years?
Yes, I can think of the game series right now. It's Tekken. I think I mentioned this before. It's Tekken 5. I don't remember if I actually bought the game. Well, yeah, I had to have bought the game, and I'll tell you why in a second. I was playing through it. I think I mentioned this too in the past. I usually try to go through each character because they all have their own little movie endings. So that was cool. I always like to do that. But that one, the first playthrough, and I don't remember who I actually picked. I don't remember who it was. I had a couple favorites on there, but it's been a while since I played it. That end boss was so cheap. I just couldn't stand it anymore. I think I had it on normal, which usually I can beat.
Are you talking about Demon?
Probably. All I know is he had like a almost like a foot stomp that like kind of drove the ground upward and towards you, and that's all he would do. It was just so cheap, and I just got so pissed off one day. I was done. I literally ejected the game and snapped it in half because I got that mad. That was the only time. Well, no, there's another time I did that. That's for another show. But
come on!
No. The second one was Black Ops 2.
Oh, okay.
It's Call of Duty, and that was just because the spawning in that game was horrendous. I still kept on that series though. I'm still a Call of Duty fan. But no, Tekken, I'm just done. I'm done with Tekken for right now. So I can't go back and play those games anymore. DB, any game snapping in your past?
No, so I have not had, I certainly, and other people can probably attest to this, I'm a competitive person and probably don't deal well with failure. But for some reason, no, I've never, probably it is the price tag attached to what I've purchased that prevents me from snapping it.
That's why I don't break controllers.
Yeah, right? No, there have been games that I've regretted. And part of this, I was just going through this this past week with my son who purchased ARMS for the Switch. Really was interested in it. I kind of tried to dissuade him 2 different times because I remember how much he didn't enjoy the test punch. But eventually he, it was his money, he earned it, and he wanted to do it. And within the first night, he just hated it. He's yelling at the screen, and it's cheap, and it's not working right. He did not take it out and chew up the Switch, the cartridge, because he knows that they taste bad. But he was very irritated about it. But it also, he eventually kept coming back to it. He got better. He's appreciating it a little bit more. For me, and it's interesting that you said Call of Duty Black Ops, because that was the last game that I can remember regretting my purchase, was Black Ops 3. Purchased it day one. Part of it was that I kind of bought into the hype. It was, 2 cycles in of having the Xbox One, playing with friends with Destiny. Other people were getting it, and picked it up, and it was too bleak for me. The playing through the story, I finished last year's Infinite Warfare story, right? And I went back and did Modern Warfare. I'm okay with the modern shooter. It was just like the bleak future was. It gave me no reason to keep going. Like, I didn't want to spend any more time in that world.
And hence the title of our show.
Yes, right. It was not enough to keep going at all. But
that was just single player, though, right?
Yes, it was a single player, and I but I also knew that I did try the multiplayer, and I was happy to shut it off and go back to Battlefield, any Battlefield versus Call of Duty. But that's just my own personal preference. So, but in that case, I was able to, I regretted it fast enough to be able to turn it back around and get basically what I paid for it out of it by trading it back in.
So that was the question I was going to ask. I was going to ask, when you guys have had these experiences, have you actually taken the game back?
I couldn't.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would take that back.
I could have taped it, maybe.
I think a lot of times for me, because I have, for probably since, the 2005 that I've been selling and trading games, trying to make profits off them. So if it's something that I wasn't enjoying or was regretting, I wasn't going to hold on to it just in case. I am very aware that for most games, the longer you hold on to it, it's going to depreciate in value unless it's a Nintendo purchased or a limited edition type of game. So yes, I traded it back in within days of purchase and got extra trading credit. So yeah, but Zeus, how about you in those cases? Have you regretted purchases of games?
I can't remember a console game that I've purchased that I've regretted. During the Xbox 360 era, I'd say there was a general theme, right? And again, we've talked about this before, of it was a highly social gaming platform for me. It was, I'm regrettably realizing in my life, it was a unique experience because this generation is not that. There was a big fervor around it in Xbox Live. It was the heyday of casual adult gamers. And so, but in the circle of friends I was in, and these weren't CAG members, so CAG was kind of a secondary gaming group for me. There were just a bunch of guys that I met playing PGR3 that we wound up kind of being friends for several years on that platform, so I got rid of mine. But there was this circle of like, hey, dude, are you getting this game? Yeah, I'll get that game. Are you going to get that game? Yeah, and we would kind of buff ourselves all up to go buy these games. My problem was those guys were younger, and so kind of like you mentioned, DB, and maybe you weren't doing it as frequently, but they would buy games, and we would be all pumped up to play multiplayer, right? And when it got bad, they were buying those games. We would play multiplayer, and they made less money than I did, right? So they would turn those games in to fund like the purchase of the next game. So it really became this new hotness theme that I kind of got tired of, because, of course, when I buy games, I kind of buy them to play forever, right? They stay in my backlog as long as I have that system. So there were some regrettable purchases there in that I bought them specifically to play multiplayer with those friends, and they moved on. But the only real regrettable games that I distinctly stand out regretting were, I think they were all PC games. So there was a game called Mig Alley Ace that I bought early 2000s. And I'm a big flight sim fan, and flight sims are few and far between, combat flight sims especially. And I bought that game and brought it home to play on my PC, and it just didn't work. Like, it crashed more frequently than Falcon 4.0. And for people who have played Falcon 4.0 when it was released for Microprose, know that was a buggy as heck game that really was never fixed until the mod community put out a stability patch like 10 years after that game was released. So there was that. My larger regret, because it wasn't that the game didn't work, it was just that it fell so far short of its promise was Black and White.
Yes.
Who was the
Peter Molyneux, right?
Yes.
Peter Molyneux. This is the God simulation one. Yep.
Right.
Huge.
Yes.
Big dreams. Yep.
Yes, and I just didn't get it. That is the only game that I've purchased that I've taken back to the store because of the game's design and gameplay. And fortunately, I guess Electronics Boutique at the time or whoever allowed me to trade it in for store credit. And then the most recent one, and this is my last one, was NBA 2K16, which I think we talked about a little bit last year on Band of Gamers. I wanted to pull up the article that I wrote after I bought that because I don't remember exactly the problems, but it just didn't work. And there would be menu items that you couldn't get to. And this was on PC.
Okay.
And there were certain I couldn't arrange my the standard way I play NBA games, changing my plays and on the fly calling on the court. That didn't work from your game controller. It was buggy and janked up to the point where you would have to play. With the ball controller, you would have to play with their game controller, but then you would have to put your hands on the keyboard to do certain stuff. And I got extremely angry at Valve because when I tried, so the game didn't work. I burned a lot of time trying to figure out what wasn't working and workarounds for it. Valve's policy at the time, I'm not even sure what it is now, was that if you play a game for more than 2 hours, you can't ask for a refund. I played the game for more than 2 hours, but a lot of that was me trying to work around the game, and a problem with their metrics and how they measure it. The other problem was I guess I was trying to stream the game or game capture the game, and so I left the game on pause for 2 hours. That time counted. So again, I did a scorched earth policy where I didn't buy anything on Steam or from Valve for about a year. I eventually went back, but that was probably my most that and Black and White are the ones that stand out to me most.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw one more in here before we get going to what we've been playing. So I've mentioned this one too many times, but Fallout 3 was one I actually bought, and I like I said, I just couldn't get into it. It's too drab for me. Kind of like Black Ops 3 for you, DB. It was just too bleak and too drab. Just the environments and the atmosphere. And I actually bought Fallout 4, and I like that quite a lot more. Excuse me. And that's more because of the environments are more varied. There's a little bit more color in it, and just the way it plays is a little bit better too. So that was probably my only really gaming regret that I actually bought, and I actually did trade that in. I think I traded that in when I was trading a bunch of games to once again to get the Xbox One. So, but my little Tekken and Black Ops 2 incident. That's why I've gone digital now. Pretty much all digital. So we won't have any more game snaps. So I'll have to throw my console out the window or something to get rid of those games now. So it's not going to happen.
So let me ask you that question though, because I mean, Zeus talks about regretting something that it was digital. So if you've gone all digital, what happens when it's a game that you just can't get into? I mean, do you just write it off? I mean, or does it, and this is probably a topic for another time, right? But does it, because you're stuck with it, because it's digital, do you find yourself playing maybe more than you might have not if it was a physical copy that you could get rid of?
Yeah, probably for me, I'm a little bit more selective now from what I buy, since it's all digital now.
Sure.
Like a good example, Marvel vs. Capcom, was it Infinite that's coming out? I already didn't like 3 from the last game that they did, but I was kind of thinking of this one. But I've seen a lot of bad press about this game, so it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll wait on it a little bit more. Maybe if they have like a demo or something, they might have one out now. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I haven't looked into it too much. But so that's one where I was like, you know what? I'm actually looking at the previews and reviews and stuff, so that kind of like turned me off of it. So.
Yeah, I'd agree. The end result of that for me, DB, is I'm just much more cautious about buying games. And I know we podcast and I write on my blog and all that, right? But I'm just I can't afford to be a game reviewer for other people for free, right? Games come out now, I wait to see reviews, and on PC games especially. Writer that I used to work with over at Geeks Worldwide, Ben Suri, I hotly disagreed with him when I recounted my story of what went on with Valve and that NBA 2K16. But one thing I did take away from the conversation with him was he was like, you should check out Steam reviewer scores, which I've always given more weight to critic scores because they get more games and blah, blah. But now if the game has a strong score on Metacritic, I double check the reviewer scores, and if they are not very positive or mostly positive, I'll actually go read a few to see if there are. Sometimes there are things of people just being unreasonable, like Dirt 4, which we might get a little time to talk about. People were giving that a thumbs down because from Dirt Rally to Dirt 4, they skewed away from hyper-realism to a little more arcadey, and people are downvoting it for that. Well, that's a stylistic choice, but I definitely go in and look for if people are reporting like stability bugs and the game not playing and things like that. But yeah, and I just don't pre-order games anymore.
Yeah, I'll still pre-order game. I mean, like the Call of Duty and stuff. I mean, well, not like months in advance, maybe like a week or two in advance. I'll do that just to get it pre-downloaded, basically, because I know I'm going to buy it. So, or something like really interesting, like Crackdown. I'll probably do that for. So, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to watch all the previews I can, and I mean, there's so much information you get now, anyways. So, you can pretty much make a good estimation of how a game's gonna go. So let's jump on to our playlists. And Zeus, if you want to go, you mentioned Dirt 4, so if you want to either expand on that or just go on to what else you've been playing this past week.
Yeah, I'll try to go through mine kind of quickly. So if anybody wants to put me on a 5-minute timer, because I've played a bunch of stuff. So I played Bleed 2, a 2D side-scrolling action jumpery, shootery, katana bladey kind of game. I realized as I started to talk about this, that was on the Lenovo Y50. I'm pretty sure I was on the last level, and now that game save is gone. So I'll obviously be playing Bleed 2 again, probably. I really like it because it's the type of game that I don't like, so I get frustrated while I'm playing it, but I have a feeling of accomplishment when I get done. I continued playing a little Assetto Corsa after our show last week. I did buy Dirt 4, was my game purchase last week. I like it. The game looks pretty good. Some people have said that the graphics are like PlayStation 2 era graphics. I disagree with that. There's a slightly different texture model that they're using for it from Dirt Rally, again, because Dirt Rally was such a hyper-realistic game that really focused on rally road racing. But I only played it a little bit, but I do like what I played so far. So I'm on the end. It's a pretty polarizing game in terms of reviewers and users, but I'm on the look, I like racing games. And I was playing it with my Thrustmaster Ferrari 458 Italia wheel and pedals, which, again, I'm just pleased as peach about that after a year or more of struggling to get those things to work consistently all the time. I now have them working. Played a game called Depth, which was a 2014 release on PC. I bought that when I bought Shadow Tactics back in February. Hadn't played it. It's a multiplayer game. You can play single player with bots, but it literally literally pits teams of like 2 who play the sharks against 4 human players. And you swim at them very quickly and lunge and grab them in your jaws and tear them to pieces. So I got to play a little bit of that. There's video of that gameplay on my channel, Rounding Off Infinity. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't have a great score on Metacritic, I think because it can probably get pretty boring pretty quickly. And in single player, it seems to only cycle you into one map and then it restarts. So it's not like the old Unreal Tournament where you just queue up a playlist of maps and play to your heart's content. Probably the big things that I played this week, just last night, I finally got around to playing some more on my Nintendo Switch, which is the first really significant amount of time I've spent with it since launch. I played Skylanders Imaginators, which was bordering on wonderful. I've never played a Skylanders game. I've never used an Amiibo, and that is a rewarding consumer experience. The first time that like the little tutorial comes up on the screen and says, "Hey, put your Amiibo on top of your Pro controller." By the way, the Pro controller makes everything more wonderful on the Switch. So I put the Golden Queen Amiibo on there. The only experience I have with Imaginators is that my kids started watching it recently. So I actually kind of understood what was going on when the story started. But yeah, I had a pretty wonderful time. My only problem is the combat can get a little boring. But more importantly, I died fighting the first boss, and the game gave me 2 choices. It said something like give up your what do they call it? Give up your instant sensei, or it's a give up your instant sensei or restart the level. I was very concerned that if I selected Give Up Your Sensei, that these amiibos that I got in the pack, that I wouldn't be able, that I would have to earn that character back. I assumed that the model was that if you got amiibos, then you got those senseis instantly, but if you didn't, you had to earn them through gameplay. And I was afraid that if I hit Give Up This Instant Sensei, I would never get the Golden Queen back. So I elected to restart the level. There are no checkpoints, apparently, in that game. So I literally played almost an hour to get to that boss, and the restart the level was at the very beginning of the game where you meet Spyro and initially set off on the adventure. And I'm like, that's trash. And I played a little Super Bomberman R. I was playing that on Twitch. At least one person jumped in and asked me, why don't you play multiplayer? And I said, because it's my first time. Sorry if you just joined the stream, but you missed the beginning where I said this is my first time playing Super Bomberman, and I had no plans or intentions of walking into a multiplayer match right off the bat. But I was concerned I wouldn't get that because it's a highly Japanese-style game. But I did. I kind of get it, and I understand the strategy and why I won't do well in multiplayer because I just don't react fast and plan fast enough. But yeah, I had a wonderful experience playing those two games on the Switch, which were two games that I bought at launch but I had not played.
So I had been wondering, Zeus, about Skylanders, because I have it for PlayStation 4. I've played the other iterations of it. My kids have played it. I've got a crate of Skylander figures. The whole kind of conceit with the Switch one is when you're playing it, normally you have somebody on the portal, and if you die, you put another person on the portal, and then you keep going. That you just swap out the toy, and that's a new character that you end up playing with. In the Switch version, you just scan them in, right? You scan them in, and they're yours to play with. You don't have to have a portal with it at all. So did you scan in more than one, or did you scan in only one figure? I
just scanned in one. Again, I'm not Skylanders aficionado, so it's a weakness, right? Like I don't understand that paradigm. The game didn't use the terminology scan. It just said place your amiibo on top of your controller. So I did that. Yeah, and when I lost to the boss, it didn't present me like an option. It didn't say like scan in a new amiibo if you want to keep going.
Swap out a figure or character.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I've never heard the language of give up the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I was going to say something else, but I forgot. Oh, yeah, it threw me for a loop because one of the sensei, because I guess at the beginning it gives you an option of using one of your amiibos or selecting from another sensei, I think. There's at some point where it shows like some other senseis across the top of the screen, and they all call out their name and whatever their game voice is. And the last one is like Crash Bandicoot. And of course, I'm on the Nintendo Switch. I'm like, why is Crash Bandicoot in a Nintendo game, forgetting that this is kind of a historically a PlayStation series?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Skylanders has been all over the place, but Crash, it only released around holiday time. It only released on the PlayStation 4 and 3, but then shortly after, or even before Christmas time, you could buy it as a separate pack, and so you could play Crash with on the Nintendo, on Xbox. You could play it everywhere, which really kind of changes that. But it kind of ties into the Netflix cartoon because I think he ends up making a cameo in that, and so it's just one more kind of cross-marketing piece that, since it is a Activision held IP at this point, right? Because the new Crash that just came out was developed by Vicarious Visions, which also had been doing Skylanders. So yeah, no, I was curious about it because I have the game on a different system, but I think the portability aspect of it kind of is attractive. Can you play two players with it with multiple Joy-Cons, or did you get that sense?
I'm not positive, but I will check that out.
Cool.
So Prime, did you have a question about Skylanders too?
Not about Skylanders, but about Assetto Corsa. You have that on PC, right?
Right.
Okay. No, I was just because I thought I saw something that it's coming to consoles, or it's on consoles now, or
it's on consoles. It's on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I believe.
Yeah.
It's in certain aspects, it's very stark and naked in its design. Menus aren't like fully fleshed out with text labels on all the controls. As a PC gamer, when you have the ability to quickly access those with a mouse, it's not as frustrating. You can kind of figure it out. But I guess some of the backlash on console is when you don't like paint a perfectly clear picture of how the menu works to console gamers, it leads to a lot of frustration. So it has pretty low scores on console on Metacritic, but it's higher, much higher score on Metacritic on PC.
Okay, cool. All right, so that was a lot of gaming you did this past week. So and then you never played a Bomberman before that? Before the one on Switch?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I never owned it. I mean, the only Nintendo consoles I've owned have been a Wii for a brief time, a DSi for a brief time. I've got a 3DS XL, but I've never played a Bomberman game on that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering. It was kind of, I remember I used to play them a lot back in the day, so I'll probably pick that up on if I ever get a Switch. So let me, you know what? Let me jump into my games since I don't have a whole lot. Played a lot of actually open world games this past week, actually about a week and a half. But for the first one, I played Marvel Heroes Omega, and these are all on the Xbox One. So that came out, I think, last week, sometime middle of the week or so.
End of June it came out, yeah.
Oh, did it? I thought it just come out on Xbox One.
No, I think it
PlayStation and PC.
It was open beta more on the PlayStation 4, and it's been on PC for years. But like the very end of June is when it launched on both consoles officially. Oh,
okay. Yeah, I just picked it up, and I only played like the very first. I don't even think I finished the first level. I think you start like Captain America or something like that. So far, I mean, it seems fine. It kind of reminds me of Ultimate Alliance. It's that kind of gameplay and stuff like that. So it's cool. I love those games, and there's an X-Men game too like that. I forgot what that was called. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, so I played that, a little bit of that, and then so I got back into Minecraft. They just dropped a new update not too long ago, like a week or two ago. So I was just trying to go through there and see if I can find any of the new stuff. If the worlds on Xbox One are larger than on the 360, so as long as you don't go into a certain area, like if that section of the game hasn't been I guess spawned or created in your world yet, it'll run the updates, so you don't have to just keep creating new worlds. So, and these worlds are pretty big, so I was trying to find new stuff, and I did find they have like a big, like huge mansion out in the woods, or I think it's actually the jungle now. So that was pretty cool. I was going through that and I got killed because there's these new enemy mobs that they released too. So I'll have to armor up to go back into there. But that was pretty cool. And then played Just Cause 3. Still going through that through my backlog games. And then I jumped back into GTA 5. I've actually been playing through the story. I haven't even jumped on online yet. But I don't know why. I get emails all the time from Rockstar because they like pound you with emails like every week, at least 2 or 3 times a week, if that, maybe more. But I finally gave in and I started going through the story again. I'm nowhere near as far in the story as I was in the 360. I haven't even got to Trevor yet, so I only got the 2 characters right now. So I'll be, tolling through that and working my way through the story. Maybe jump online. I know it's kind of involved once you jump online, but and I'm always playing. Like I said, I'm still playing Rocket League. I played a little bit of that too. I didn't throw that in there, but I played that too. So I kind of have my one online game that I'm playing. That I really don't want to throw another one in there right now. So I'll probably just work through the story and. It's GTA, so you can do crazy things if you want to just go around and destroy stuff, or get the wand level up to 4 or 5, and just be crazy. So it's fun. And then that's all I've been playing this past week. I thought I had a couple more games, but I can't remember what they were this past week. Just smaller ones.
So Prime, are you doing any game capture or streaming with Just Cause 3?
You know what? I did a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
and that was on Beam, and they're probably gone by now because I keep forgetting that it's a 2-week. That they keep it for 2 weeks and then they delete it. So I'll have to go back and check. Maybe it's still there. But yeah, I did. I've done a couple times where I've streamed for a little bit, half hour, 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome game. Where DBQ commented a few episodes ago, maybe even on one of the tail end shows of Band of Gamers, and mentioned that game design now is getting focused a little bit about like how well does it stream, and Just Cause 3 is one of those games where, like I've mentioned, like crazy things happen. By the way, I think you asked a few weeks ago and I didn't have the answer, but so on Twitch, to avoid the disappearing videos, you just make a highlight out of that broadcast.
Oh, okay.
So when you get done, hit the triple ball menu thing and select highlights. It'll take you to another screen. What I keep the whole video. It's designed to make clips, but what you can do is you can just take the start trim and the end trim, and just bracket them for the beginning and end of the whole thing, and then just make it a highlight, and then it'll just take the whole video and put it on your highlights page, and your highlights never go away.
Oh, nice tip there. Yeah, I'll have to remember that. Yeah, I'll have to. I've been trying to use Beam too a little bit more, just because it's a little bit quicker to set up. It's pretty much instantaneous once you hit start on it, which is pretty cool. But I've had a couple problems though where it was just, I forgot what I was streaming. It wasn't just Cost 3, but I was trying to stream something else, and it would just cut off on me all of a sudden. I was like, what the heck happened? So I don't know. Might have just been my connection or something.
And of course, on both of those services, you can Beam you can't export directly to YouTube, but you can download it really quickly and then repost it. On Twitch, of course, you can. I think you can download it also, but it has a stock interface to export it directly over to YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I usually use. Just export it to YouTube pretty much like the next day or so. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, DB, how about you? What you've been playing this past week or so?
So me, not as much. I really have, the summertime has taken a hit to my gaming. So I did play a little bit of Marvel Heroes Omega on Xbox. Played chunks of it, probably not a lot, but enough to get up to maybe level 10 on PlayStation 4, and kind of seeing how it controls, seeing what kind of graphically, if it looks any different. Yeah, I can notice a little bit of graphical uptick in terms of PlayStation 4, but again, this is a 2014 game, and so there's not a whole, it's not pushing a lot of graphics one way or the other. Other than that, I've been kind of on the road and traveling and family things, and so I've been playing my 3DS and going back to some, I picked up both Super Metroid and Link to the Past during E3 when they were like $4 each. And so kind of going back through some classic SNES games, after last week's announcement about the SNES Classic, that gave me a reason to kind of dive back into some of those and putz around. So is that a thumbs down because it's this? Or thumbs down
That's right.
They're never going to print enough of them to satisfy anybody.
It's probably not going to exist. It's just a ploy, just like the first one. I never saw one, so it doesn't exist to me.
That's right. I waited in line for the NES Classic and was 32 out of only 16 people that had one. So my 4 o'clock in the morning waiting, I was there and went back home empty-handed. So in theory, they do exist, and somebody got one somewhere.
Are you gonna do that again?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it was it was one of those. There's the excitement in the crowd aspect of it. So we'll see what happens. So no, not a whole lot. I was really curious to ask about Skylanders. Actually, this past weekend, GameStop had like a buy two get one free that I was tempted to pick up Skylanders for the Switch because it was only $20. So this is where I did not do it. I did not pull the trigger. I talk about kind of slash and burn. It's been a while since I've gone back and purchased something from GameStop, but so I was curious there. So no, not. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
So you've only been traveling with your 3DS. You haven't been taking the Switch along?
Well, let's just say the Switch has come along with us, but
okay.
I have not been playing it because it's getting a lot of playtime with my kids. So gotcha. Last weekend, last Thursday, I was out. We took a road trip. The kids brought the Switch, played both Mario Kart and Zelda in the car. Nice. My son met up with some friends and brought the Switch and ended up, doing it kind of full Nintendo ad mode of meeting some friends.
Were they on the basketball court?
No, they were in a park. They were actually in a park, and they popped it out, and they were playing some Mario Kart. So, nice. So it works. It's real. So no, the Switch is a wonderful portable console, no matter what Nintendo says about it being a home console. And, I think I find myself more and more that if it's an indie game that is out on multiple platforms, that I would prefer to, I'll wait to pick it up on the Switch when it comes out, or wait for it to be on sale, because the portability aspect of it is really convenient.
Great. And another public service announcement here as we're getting ready to close out. If your Nintendo Switch has lost network connectivity because you've been letting it sit in the dock for a very long time, you got to pop it out of the dock, power it down, completely shut it off, not standby, not sleep, shut it off, put it back in your dock, and then power it back up. And it should immediately regain network connectivity. Nice. I came across that issue earlier in the week. And I'm really, so every once in a while, actually a lot of the time, we go over sales numbers. I'm highly interested to see, for this month to close out, and to see sales numbers of ARMS, because that game is not reviewing well. And I'm really curious, all indicators are that it's selling incredibly well. So I'm highly curious to see if it outsells Mario Kart, which earned the honor of outselling Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I'm very curious to see how that dynamic plays out in the market.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Actually, two questions for you, DB, real quick. One about ARMS, actually, and your son playing it. Was he playing with the Joy-Cons, like motion control, or was he using like a regular controller, Pro controller?
So we've been playing it both with the Joy-Cons in terms of motion control, and also in a tablet mode, or in kind of a controller mode where you're controlling it. We don't have a Pro controller, but
okay.
Slipping it into like the little
the grip.
Yeah. So he's played it both ways. I think, and what other podcasts are saying are completely true, that the benefit of doing the motion controls is that you can curve your punches, which is actually kind of a cool dynamic. It's much easier to do that. I find it easier to move with the motion controls, but the kind of reliability of knowing when your punch throws is certainly easier with the button. But then the challenge there is that it's hard to hook your punches with the sticks while actually not staying in the same spot, because it's also related to how you move or how you block, things like that.
Yeah, and and here again we have the Wii problem, and I feel like the inherent design problem with motion controls, right, is when you're playing Madden, right, and the controls are the same as they've been for 20-something years in that franchise, and you hit the circle button, right, to be mad at the controller if your running back doesn't spin. But if your spin move is some kind of weird physical kinematic, you just don't know if you didn't do the move right, or it didn't register, didn't catch, or if it's a game bug, right? And that's way more discomforting than hitting a button.
So I'll defend ARMS a little bit with the motion controls and say that because it's not punch out in terms of the speed to it. You don't have to be dodging and blocking King Hippo or Piston Honda as he's coming at you super fast, right? That it is almost turn based, because your punches have such a distance to travel that the strategic aspect of a match is anticipating where and when somebody's going to throw it and being able to counter that, either block it ahead of time, or it's not about responding quickly and pulling up your block. It's about anticipating where you're going to throw your next punch so that you're not left exposed. So it slows the pace down. I find it, one of my sons has played through the Grand Prix, and which is basically 10 matches, right? There's no story mode, there's no tournament aspect to it. It's relatively bare bones. See, I didn't even have anything to talk about with ARMS. But what we've had the most fun with is playing in the same room with each other, right? Because then there is, we're both dealing with the same handicap of, okay, so it may not be exactly precise, but we're both in that same ability range. And so I find some of the online modes, like the basketball or volleyball, are actually sometimes more enjoyable than some of the battles. Again, a lot of this was all in the test punch, so if anybody played it, it's exactly what you saw there. The one thing that my sons and I have been talking about, the one thing that we really wish they had was some type of more robust training mode, because you unlock different types of arms that have different abilities. and there's not really a good way to just go out and test how this a punch hooks or how this does that. And so, you know, it's a really cool game, but the structure around it is not developed nearly as much as it could be or should be.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So that brings us to the end of another episode of Enough to Keep Going, episode number 3. Right before, real quick before we leave, anybody have a quick plug for anything? No.
If you're actually watching, highly unlikely, but if you're actually watching the show and you are a fan of the Sci-Fi Network show Dark Matter, we are about to record that show as well. You can see the follow-up episode to our historic epic episode where show producer Joseph Berlazzi dropped in on us completely impromptu and actually participated in the live show last week. So
nice.
We're now glad to call the co-creator, producer, and showrunner for that series, veteran of the Stargate, of the more than a decade run of Stargate SG-1, as a friend of the show. So that's
great.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm still. Words don't describe. Like, it's just amazing. That show will be coming up next. The Dark Hypotheses is the name of the podcast.
Nice. And you can also go back and watch the E2KGN30, which is our newscast. We have 2 episodes of that out there right now. So go back, watch those. So we'll maybe have one tomorrow. We'll see. News is a little light lately, so maybe we'll skip it. Maybe we won't. We'll figure something out. And then you can go back and obviously watch our 2 other shows, and subscribe to the network. And you got all those 3 great shows. Maybe more to come in the future. So that'll wrap us up for tonight, guys. So that's episode number 3. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and share. And then we will see you. We should be back next Monday, our regular day and time. So we won't be as late, and that should be good. And then join us maybe tomorrow. You could always just jump on the network and check us out, see if we're streaming live around 9 Eastern or so. So until next time, guys, we'll see you.